Now that we have covered these, let's move to another set. Let's say we're interested to bring some sort of chart into our visualization. For this one, I'm interested to look at the number of bike trips that were done in each single day based on our data range. So for that, a time series would be good. I can just put one of these here, just click on it and just drag it here, drop. I can make it a little smaller. I'll click on it. So in terms of data, so if we have a data range, which we will add later, we will use date. The dimension is date, and the metric is the total number of bike trips that were done on that specific day. If you're looking for the average number, we can change this into average. We can do that. So we see that, for instance, a lot of lines are like kind of it's really hard to read. I can just do some changes here. The colors are good. I can show the x-axis and the y-axis on the number of average trips. These are probably per bike station. I actually think the sum would be more interesting, just to see how the trends would change over time. That might be a little better. So let's look at this data now. I can make this also more smooth. If you go to styling, you can we can use a title. We'll put date in here. We talked about these before. You can change the colors if you want, and if you want to run regression, you can do that. Also, you can use bars. We've talked about this before, but let's just go with these again. If you have any other information, okay, here I want to make him look a little more smooth. So that's that, because again, it's a wide range. It's really hard to see much here, but once we add the date range, it would be more meaningful. So actually, let's go ahead and start doing that. So let's say this is our whole data set. It starts from 2013 July to 16 September of 2016. Now let's say we just want to look at a fraction of this data, right? That's the point of, again, dashboard, dynamic representation of the data. So what we do is that we go back to insert and we look for a date range, a date range control. Okay, I'll just click on that. I'm just going to drop it here. I can make it a slightly bigger. Again, if you want to add change to the styling and all that, you can just do what you think is appropriate. I'm just going to make it a little bigger, more visible. Once you click on this, it will automatically start to show the data for you. Let's say, just to show you how it works, let's say we're just interested to look at September 2013 data. So I can just select that range. So that's September 1st, 2013 to end of September. So we say do that, click this, click apply, and now we see that we might be able to see better again some of these trends. So now the numbers are all got updated. So the average bike ride and all that. And we see that more specific toward this chart. Now we can see a little bit better how things change, right? So for instance, the trips were low. Probably the dips show maybe they're either weekends or we have to look at the dates. But we see that we can, for instance, some ups and downs in our data. Now, if you want to look at this across 2 months, we just go ahead and do that, and we might be able to again compare some of these numbers. So we see that, okay, it goes up and there's some dips, and it goes up and there's dips. So these are probably again either weekend. They must be weekends when people really don't take many of those bikes. Again, if you have to move it, if you have to change the colors and styles, you can go ahead and do that here. So we had bike trips per day. Now another, let's say, interesting representation would be to see which one of the bike stations have been used the most. So in order to do that, I'm going to add another one. I think for this one, a pie chart or maybe a donut chart would be more interesting. So we can make this a way that it fits this space. Data is already created. Now we're interested into station. So we go to the station. So the date is there. That's good. Date range again represents this one. So we want to have that selected. The dimension here is date, but we are more interested now into stations. So we want to look at the stations that have, let's say this says average bike ride per minute. So these are the stations that people have taken bikes, but we're interested, let's say, in the total number of trips. So we want to see on average which one of these stations had the highest number of bikes borrowed from. So that's the outcome of that. We can go to the styling. For instance, we have 10 slices. Let's say I want to see the top 15 bike stations. So now we can see that looking at this, we probably want to sort this too. So it's already sorted descending. Okay, so it starts with the highest number here. So we see that this, for instance, station is the highest in that range, right? Again, if I move my data set, all of this data, if I move the range, this data is going to get updated, right? Did I select this properly? Let me just go to select the date and then apply. And these numbers going to get updated, going to get changed. So again, feel free to practice these on your end. Again, the trends also changing too. All right, another thing I was interested in, if you look at, go back to the example again, we're trying to mimic as much as possible. Trip duration by gender, by user type. So for this one, that was an example of the other kind of data set we have. So for this one, let's say we want to compare the gender and the type of user, and we want to, for instance, come up with a comparison of male versus female and how much time they have spent and every time they got a bike, like average number of trips per comparing between male and female. So for this one, I think a bar chart is probably suitable. I'm just gonna drop like a regular bar chart here. Again, you can change the colors and whatever that you're interested in. We go to the gender, the date range is good. The dimensions now, first we're interested in gender. And then in terms of the metrics, we are interested in, let's say, the average number of bike rides per minute. I can actually just remove the second one. If you click another metric, it will just show multiple bars. Now, if we just do this, so for instance, in the range that we've selected, it looks like a bike ride for male on average has been 12 minutes, and for female it's been like 14 minutes. And the total is like 13 something. Now if you want to look at now by subscriber type, you can add to the dimension. I can just say the user type. So we should be able to get 4 bars, which will distinguish between male and female and the type of user, so subscriber and customer. Now we can actually see a little bit more detailed information. So if we now distinguish between the subscriber type, it looks like the male subscriber type had much higher duration for bike ride, whereas the non-subscriber versus subscribers were kind of low. So it looks like in general, people who are male and are non-subscribers tend to take those bikes for longer time. So these could be an example of someone who's visiting or a tourist, for instance, in New York City, whereas the subscriber type is probably using for commute for a short amount of time. Kind of makes sense. Again, if you, for instance, look at the payment plan, it's usually, if you're a subscriber, for instance, the first 15 minutes are free. So because of that, most people try to cut their trip before 15 minutes. I'm just giving an example. For instance, there are some trends that we can visibly see. Now if you want to look at the numbers in another range, you can again change this range or extend it or shorten it, and you should be able to get updated numbers for each of these. All right. Now the last thing we want to check was we want to know which one of the bikes have been used the most. So for this one, we can just create a simple table. So instead of adding a chart, I can just drop a table. We saw an example of a table that's automatically being created when you add a data set. So we have a table. It's probably going to get populated. We're going to change this data. We're going to bike ID. We are interested in bikes that have had not the sum, but well, maybe the sum of actually total trips. So that kind of makes sense. So we now have, we can make this a little bigger. So we have rows. So we have bike IDs. Again, if you want to change the styling, you can. Play with these. Let's not just change it for now. So we have the bike IDs and the total number of trips. So for instance, this bike with ID has been used around 3,500 times in that period. If we make that period a little shorter, let's again go back to a period of let's say the months of January 14. We see that, for instance, the numbers change, or we can see actually there's no customer data here. It's only subscriber for January. But bike number 21076 been used the highest, and we can kind of browse through this data if you're interested. At any point of time, if you want to see how your data, how your dashboard basically looks like, you can just click view here, and that's going to be something that you can extract or post, for instance, on a website. Or share with other people if you're interested. And if you want to again go back in and edit this data set, you can simply click on edit. So this was again, and again, don't forget to name your dashboard. I'll just say city dashboard. And you can just enter and we'll save. And if I go back now, I should be able to see the dashboard that I have created. And if you need to update it, again, add data set, drop data so you can do all those changes from here.